The events of the movie take place somewhere, some time ago. Lewis is a well-known writer who, after 12 years of separation, finally decided to reunite with his family. This decision was hard for him, but he must make this journey to inform the relatives of his imminent demise. Getting off the plane, Lewis caught a taxi, while the family prepared for his arrival. Everyone had long awaited this moment. Finally, Lewis arrived. The relatives are very nervous waiting to meet him. When Lewis entered the house, his mother, sister, and another girl greeted him warmly. Suzanne hugged her brother, while Catherine, who was seeing Lewis in person for the first time, could barely hold back her tears. It seemed like everyone was happy about Lewis's arrival, except Antoine, who kept grumbling. Martine was horrified to realize how long they hadn't seen Lewis. He wasn't even present at Catherine and Antoine's wedding, his brother. Much has happened since then. Martine joked that they were not the most normal family. Finally, the brothers embraced. Catherine showed Lewis a photo of her children. These are Lewis's niece and nephew, whom he had never seen. Martine set the table. Antoine stood by the window and did not participate in the conversation, while his wife talked incessantly. Antoine was clearly offended by his brother. Eventually, while Catherine tried to be friendly, an argument arose between Antoine and his sister. Antoine made a sarcastic remark about her bright makeup and provocative appearance. Catherine continued to smile sadly at Lewis. He was a little confused. By the way, Catherine and Antoine's son is named Lewis. He's 6 years old. Their daughter is 2 years older. Antoine was tired of hearing this. He claimed that identical names were nothing more than a coincidence. The family dispute was interrupted again by Martine, who continued to set the table. Catherine explained that in her family, it's customary to name the first son after the father, but Antoine didn't want to give the child his name, considering it a bad omen. These infantile conversations made Suzanne laugh. Soon she had the opportunity to talk to her brother alone. Suzanne hardly remembers Lewis and thinks he did wrong when he decided to cut all ties with the family. Throughout all these years, the family followed Lewis's life and was proud of him. Being a talented writer, he was able to realize himself. The relatives always read articles about him and his biography. Suzanne felt her face itching. She usually didn't use cosmetics, but today is a special day. Suzanne wanted to look beautiful. She showed her brother all his letters. Despite everything, he always sent them all postcards for every birthday and other holidays. Lewis never forgot about his family, although he was far away. Suzanne shared that she wanted to leave home but changed her mind. She feels calmer here. All of Lewis's old things remained in the house. This evoked conflicting feelings in him. Suzanne always helps her mother in everything, although they often have conflicts. However, Suzanne is ready to give up her freedom for a loved one. When the girl directly asked her brother why he decided to return now, Lewis evaded a direct answer. He just said he wanted to visit the old house, which surprised Suzanne. From downstairs came Martine's voice, reminding her son and daughter that everyone is waiting for them. Martine was telling various stories from the past. Antoine was still grumbling, showing with all his appearance that he didn't like being here. The argument between the older brother and the mother made Lewis smile. Martine regrets that all her children have already grown up. When she turned on the music, Antoine became even more annoyed. He is disgusted with all these cute conversations and with everyone pretending everything is fine. Ignoring his grumbling, the women were having fun. Eventually, Antoine couldn't help but smile, just like Lewis. No one knows yet why Lewis is really here. He indulges in memories. He had many happy moments in childhood. In the present, Lewis feels nauseous because of his illness. But despite feeling unwell, he is glad to be home. Receiving a call from someone, Lewis said he hadn't told the family yet that he didn't have much time left to live. For Lewis, communicating with relatives turned out to be more difficult than he thought. He doesn't know his sister at all, and the others have aged significantly. Lewis doesn't know how they will react to the news of his illness. Maybe they won't even cry. He's very scared right now. There's still awkwardness between Catherine and Lewis. In reality, Lewis was interested in hearing about his niece and nephew's lives, and he regretted Antoine's contrary claim. Perhaps Antoine said that because he's still resentful. Only now did Lewis realize he knows nothing about his brother and his life. Catherine told him that Antoine makes tools at the factory. Antoine lives with the certainty that his younger brother isn't interested in the family. Catherine shares the same opinion, although she was uncomfortable admitting it. Lewis didn't confirm or deny her words. In any case, Catherine's remark was fair. Martine smokes secretly from her elder son and asks the younger not to give her away. According to her, Antoine is used to controlling everything and being aware of everything happening in their family. Martine understands that Lewis won't stay here for long and wants him to be tolerant towards his brother and sister. Perhaps this is their last meeting, and maybe they can be sharp, but it's not their fault. For Martine, it's important for their family to reunite, but she also can't force her younger son to stay. Finding out that Louis has been living at a different address for a long time, Martine was indignant because it turns out he didn't receive any of his letters. Louis assured her that even though he doesn't live in the old house, his mail is delivered to the new address. Martine directly asked her son what prompted him to come after 12 years. Barely holding back his emotions, Louis remained silent. When the mother and son hugged, both cried quietly. Louis truly regrets that recently he has been so distant from his family and hasn't even visited them. But the past cannot be changed. Louis is now 34 years old. Martine doesn't know if it's a lot. Anyway, she's glad their family is together now. Later during lunch, while everyone was casually chatting, Louis remained silent and tried to mentally prepare himself to tell the family about his illness. The sister noticed that Louis was thoughtful. He said he wanted to go to the old house. Antoine didn't understand why his brother needed this. Martine also found this idea strange because the house had long been abandoned, time had ravaged it. However, Suzanne and Catherine on the contrary supported Louis. He tried to change the subject to avoid unnecessary awkwardness. Suzanne still tried to defend her younger brother's interests, leading to an argument with Antoine. The sister accused him of selfishness and left. In general, the family dinner was hopelessly ruined. Louis decided to go to the storage where his old things were stored. And each of these things holds memories. Inhaling the familiar smell, Louis thinks about the past, associated with the love of his life. That guy was special. They often met at night. Catherine brought Louis out of his memories. She said dessert was almost ready and that Martine was waiting downstairs. Before leaving, Catherine advised Louis to have a heart-to-heart talk with his brother. Antoine really needs it. Louis decided to do just that. It turns out Antoine smokes just like their mother and also hides it from the family. Antoine is going to the store for cigarettes, and the brother decides to keep him company. However, the conversation didn't go well at all. Obviously, over the years, the brothers have become strangers to each other. Louis talked about the flight, but Antoine wasn't interested in hearing about it. In general, Antoine doesn't care why his brother is here. Antoine doesn't even want to know because Louis has long ceased to be a part of their family. It doesn't matter what he says anymore. The rest of the way was in silence. When Louis tried to talk to his brother again, he didn't want to. Antoine is silent not because he likes listening to others, but because he doesn't want anyone pouring their heart out to him. Learning that Pierre Jolicoeur, the love of his life, recently passed away from cancer, Louis couldn't find words. Meanwhile, Martine and Catherine were preparing dessert. When the guys returned home, Catherine and Suzanne immediately sensed that the brothers had quarreled. Louis preferred to stay aside. The news of Pierre's demise broke him. Louis tried not to cry, but he couldn't hold back the tears. Soon it will all be over for him. It was time for the family dinner. At first everyone was silent, and Louis dared to break the silence first, saying that he regretted the time he had missed. Louis would be glad to see his sister visiting him soon. He also wanted to finish the conversation with Antoine, but this time without mutual resentment, and let all these 12 years they haven't seen each other, they don't cease to be a family. When Louis announced that it was time for him to leave, Antoine got angry for some reason and left the table, just like Catherine. Martine didn't understand what was wrong. Suddenly Antoine returned and, behaving nervously, offered to drive his brother to the airport. Suzanne doesn't understand what has gotten into her older brother. Everyone is upset that Louis is leaving so quickly. The atmosphere at the table is becoming increasingly tense. Martine wants to know what the younger son is hiding. Louis only said that he has an urgent appointment. Louis never found the courage to tell the truth. Suzanne and Martine didn't want to let Louis go, feeling that he was withholding something. Just a minute ago, they were all having such a wonderful time, and now everything has gone awry. Suzanne felt like the older brother was kicking the younger one out, although Antoine hadn't done anything of the sort. In tears, Suzanne hugged Louis, promising to visit him at the earliest opportunity. Antoine impatiently asked his younger brother to hurry up. Katrina, Suzanne, and Martine didn't understand why Antoine was being so cruel. He in turn was puzzled as to why everyone was accusing him of cruelty. He only wanted to do a favor. When Louis tried to calm his brother down, Antoine was on the verge of hitting him. Fortunately, Antoine managed to control himself. Martine said goodbye to Louis. She said that next time they would be better prepared. This was not at all what Louis had expected from the family reunion, but it was time to leave. Louis never mentioned that this might have been his last visit, although he promised to come to the house more often. Before Louis left, he saw a bird in the house that was trying to fly out but couldn't find a way out. In the final scene, we see Louis leaving, while the bird lies on the carpet.